I mean, yeah, I just minding my own business, sipping my tea, getting ready for some Monday Night Raw.
And by that you mean eating a raw potato.
It's one of those things where she probably was like sipping on some coffee or tea and kind of just like glanced over out the window and saw the torches approach.
Just did like the double take.
Spits the coffee up.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of Shadows and Sightings, a paranormal comedy podcast where we talk about all things spooky. I'm Taylor.
I'm Nick.
And we've got a great episode for you today. We're going to be talking all about witches of Maryland, witch landmarks, all pertaining to the seldom talked about things in Maryland that have to do with witches. Salem gets all the...
Yeah,
it's always Salem.
I was thinking the same thing when looking at some of the topics that we're going to talk about today. I had no idea that there was this much, I don't say much, but the research that we did find of witchcraft and like witch lore, I guess, in Maryland, which isn't surprising if you think about it, because Maryland was one of like the original 13 colonies.
Yeah. It was definitely not as harsh on witches and witchcraft as the Massachusetts colony was, but it still had its place in history of having witch trials. I think every colony probably had witch trials to some degree. We only had, I think, 2 or 3 executions for witchcraft, but...
Really? In Maryland? Yeah. Because we're civilized.
Yeah, fuck you, Massachusetts.
Ruining lives.
Just kidding.
Shit.
I love Salem.
Yeah.
I was in Boston. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
so.
It was cool. You guys got good lobsters.
Oh, man.
The lobster
fucking
roll.
Lobster roll
I'll
is...
fucking die for.
What I would give right now for a... Because it's like 80 degrees outside.
Let's go right now.
As we're... All right, let's go.
Let's just stop recording and let's go. We'll just hop in the car. We're going to Salem. We're going to Boston right now.
And we're back. And that was, man.
That was pretty good lobster roll. That was
fantastic.
That was delicious.
It only took us 14 hours to get one way.
But it's fine. Yeah.
Actually, the drive when we went up there really wasn't that bad. It was like 10 hours, I guess. Coming back wasn't bad. I mean, I drove the whole way coming back, but.
Yeah. I don't know why it hit me because
I just blacked out.
I did. I really did because what time did we leave?
Midnight.
It was midnight, right?
Yeah.
So, maybe that's what it was. I tried to force myself to get some sleep because I was like, I'm going to drive a little bit on this trip.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do it. I think I was too excited about the trip. And we went to bed like around 7 to try to end.
Well, it's also like, when you try to force yourself to sleep, you're only thinking like, okay, I've got to go to sleep. I got to go to sleep. What time is it? I got to go to sleep. I've only got this many hours left. I got to go. It just makes it worse. It's not a natural time for you to go to sleep.
You can't like turn your brain off.
Yeah.
And then you start to ruminate. And then you think about all the shit you should have done the day before.
Yeah. Like I got off of work and I got home at like 6 or 7, I guess, that day. And still had some packing, I guess, to do or load up the car and stuff. And I was like, okay, I'm done. It's like 8 o'clock. I'm going to start trying to catch some Z's because I know I'm going to drive. I'm going to start the leg of the trip.
Yeah.
Not thinking I was going to drive 90% of the time going up. So, man, that like those first couple hours of being in Salem just seemed like a blur to me because I was so tired until we got back to the hotel and took like a 3-hour nap and then went back into Salem.
Yeah. And that going back into Salem that evening was awesome.
Oh, fantastic.
Because we were rested. Because we were like all zonked out and we were like well rested.
Yeah, we were ready to rock.
And then we were like, okay, let's make some shit happen. It was pretty dope.
Yeah.
Pretty dope.
So before we came on air, Nick was about to tell a story about some strange nightmare you had.
Oh, yeah. So, going back to sleeping. So when you go to sleep, do you sleep with music or anything like that?
I fall asleep to the TV on, usually. If the TV's not on, it takes me forever to fall asleep. But if I fall asleep to the TV being on, I'll set like a sleep timer or something. It doesn't need to be on the whole time.
Okay.
Sometimes I have weird dreams too if the TV is still on, like if it stays on.
If it's silent, like I'm dreaming.
Okay.
Like there's just no hands.
Gotcha.
But it's pretty much like anytime I sleep in silence, it's almost a guarantee that I'm going to dream. So we've been trying to get used to sleeping in silence because of baby number 2 coming along.
Is that public knowledge now, by the way?
For the most part.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Like you could, if you told your mom or anything like that, or your family.
So if they find out on this podcast, it's okay.
No, I don't care. Yeah. Yeah. We're expecting number 2.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
I've known for like 3 months, 3 or 4 months. I was the first one to know. Not to brag.
Yeah. It's got
kind of a big deal.
It's got a big deal.
Yeah.
Fuck all of you. So we were able to sleep in silence. So complete pitch darkness, no music, and I fall asleep. This nightmare, and it wasn't even like a crazy nightmare. It was like me still sleeping in my bed with broad daylight, and a blanket just gets thrown over my head, and I'm like being like smothered, and I'm like freaking the fuck out. But I'm like, I have this thing where I have like sleep paralysis.
Yeah. But
the more you get used to it, I can kind of control a little bit better. So it's the weirdest thing where I'll fall asleep and I'll wake up like mid-sleep paralysis, and it's kind of really like, oh fuck, here we go again. Just kind of annoyance at this point. Yeah. So I'll start telling my body to like wake up and try to get
like little triggers to try to get Brittany awake.
Brittany's attention to wake me up. Yeah. So like in this stream, I'm just like, finally she wakes up and she's like, wake up, wake up.
Punching you in the face.
Wake up to her actually smothering me with the blanket.
It wasn't a dream.
It was real. Yeah, that was my nightmare experience. But it only happens when, like I said, in complete like silence.
Interesting. Mine's the opposite. A lot of times I'll fall asleep to watching a YouTube video or something. And sometimes it cuts a video, like it'll turn off on its own, and other times it'll just play all night. And if it plays all night, the deeper I go to sleep and I can still hear the TV, I'll have dreams about whatever is on the TV.
Sometimes like I do the same thing, whatever is playing. What is your go-to falling asleep to?
Usually, like I said, it's usually YouTube. And I love long-form retrospectives because they put me out so fast. Like, there's this one channel I've been watching. I forget the channel's name, or else I would plug it. But he had like an 8-hour-long retrospective on the Hey Arnold series. And I can't make it past the first 45 minutes. Because it's something about it. It's just like being talked to in like a monotone kind of people. Hey, if you fall asleep to this podcast, good for you. Like that's kind of what I'm talking about. It's like that monotone, and you can just, it's soothing in a way. And it's just, I always will go back to, remember Miss Thornhill? Yeah. She always said that, because she was an English teacher, well, you're programmed to go to sleep as you're being read to, because as a baby, that's what you go to sleep to, bedtime stories. Yeah. So it's already kind of in your brain that that's time to go to sleep. So these retrospective series kind of are just long form storytelling of.
Did she tell us that if you fall asleep while she's reading, she didn't get her? Yeah. Is that what it was?
Yeah. So it's definitely been like retrospectives lately.
Yeah.
Which I appreciate. There's one guy I watch, 616 Entertainment. Okay. On YouTube. He's got that nice video quality and stuff. And
that soothing voice.
His voice isn't so much soothing. It's just like the stuff is, I don't know, it's interesting to me. Like he did retrospectives on like the Tony Hawk Pro Skater series and the Spider-Man games and Grand Theft Auto series, like Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, and San Andreas. He did like a 5-hour long form of Halloween, went through each movie kind of in parts, and did the same thing for Friday the 13th. Just good stuff to fall asleep to.
Yeah. We fall asleep a lot to Studio
Ghibli
movies. Yeah. Howl's Moving Castle. I could probably quote that movie like the back of my hand. Fall asleep to it. It's the most chill. It's my favorite Studio Ghibli movie, and it's the most chill one to like fall asleep to. It's just a cozy movie.
Yeah. Granted, I can fall asleep to just about anything if it's on TV. It's just as long as it's background noise, I can fall asleep to it.
Have you watched those soft white underbelly interviews on YouTube? Ooh, you gotta watch them. They're good. I don't know what the credentials are. I don't think he's a therapist. I think he's just an interviewer person. But he brings on the show people from all walks of life, and just it's like 30 minutes to an hour of just unscripted, like, tell me your story.
Oh, interesting.
And it, like, some of them get pretty fucking dark.
Yeah, I bet.
There's a couple psychologists on there. there was the dude who, I don't know if he was a prison guard or if he was an inmate guarding like another inmate, but apparently he was Charles Manson's guard.
Oh shit.
Talks to him for, and it's just like an unscripted.
That would be insane to just have that connection.
I haven't watched it yet. I haven't watched that episode yet, but it's like on my list.
On your list.
Yeah.
Get inside he would have direct access to the inside of the mind of Charles Manson. That would be insane.
It's pretty. I think there's another episode where it's supposedly Charles Manson's son.
Okay.
And he's like talking to him for like, a good 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. And then a couple other ones. There's like a shit ton, but they're really good.
Damn.
Yeah. If you ever get a chance. Fell asleep to The Two Towers last night.
Oh my gosh.
Oh god, so great. So great.
How do you fall asleep to that?
Well,
I just would start. I would try to fall asleep and then just be like, I'm watching this now.
Well, I didn't. So I was watching, like I said, Studio Ghibli put on Spirited Away. That's what I fell asleep to.
Oh, okay. Woke up and The Two Towers was on.
I woke up and The Two Towers was playing.
And you just wake up to the scene. Let the horn of Hammerhelm sound through the halls one more time.
Fell back asleep.
Yeah.
Woke up to the scene of Gandalf charging down the mountain.
You know what my favorite part of The Two Towers is? And this is such a specific thing. I love the scene where they're all standing in silence on the wall right before the big fight starts. The plink coming off the armor when it starts raining.
Oh, yeah.
It's so satisfying. It's so
satisfying. It's such an iconic scene.
It's like, it's so quiet, and then all of a sudden you just hear the planks coming off of the metal armor. I'm like, this is filmmaking.
Yeah.
Back when all the armor was real and everything was handmade, like now it would just be a CGI thing. But that was real.
Yeah. I fucking love that movie series.
Yeah. I just watched the first two not that long ago, a couple weeks ago.
We should do the triathlon where you watch all three films, the extended version.
That's the only way to watch them.
In one go.
Yeah. That's fine.
So
I've done that before.
You wake up at like 7. You start that first one at 8 in the morning. You get your breakfast.
Your second breakfast.
Your second breakfast.
Your afternoon tea. Your 11s.
Onesies.
Your lunch.
11sies. And you go through the whole entire film series in one day.
Like I said, I went through 2 of them in one day not that long ago. And I easily could have done Return of the King. But
we did too. Actually, I think, it was semi-recent.
It's just so good.
It's just
Fellowship's still my favorite. Fellowship will always be my favorite Lord of the Rings movie.
Yeah, it's definitely a good one. I mean, they're all good.
But speaking of witchcraft and wizardry, Maryland witches.
Bitches. Sorry, that was the intrusive thoughts they want.
We mentioned in our episode, was it not last episode, but the episode before, I believe, while we were at a Thick and Thin Brewing Company, Nick bought a map of cryptids and stuff from Maryland. And there was a couple on there that we had never heard of before. And a couple that stuck out to me, and I was like, oh, we should talk about these. We should look these up. Was a couple of different things. One was the Witch's Tree. One was the Witch's Grave. One was the Witch's Rock of Crum Hill. And one was Moll Dyer's Rock, which was also a witch's rock. Oh. So I was like, let's just ball all these witch things together into one witch-specific Maryland episode. And if you aren't from Maryland, well, I don't know what to tell you. But
you should come visit.
You should come visit it.
We have crabs.
You know, Maryland's interesting. It's got like everything you could want. It's got mountains. It's got flatlands. It's got a bay. It's got an ocean.
It's got crabs.
It's got crabs. It's got a baseball team that sucks, but
I mean, it's not terrible. They didn't do too bad last year.
No, they did fine last year.
Yeah.
But they suck this year.
I feel like that's the trend.
I'm not bitter.
But I feel like that's the trend, though, where
unfortunately.
They kind of start off shitty, and then they...
Yeah. We have a Guinness brewery here, which is awesome.
I still have yet to go to that.
That's a crime. You should be kicked off this podcast. We've also got spooky ghost stories and tales of glories.
Tales of glory holes. No, intrusive thoughts again.
I don't know. We probably do have tales of glory holes somewhere. Probably Baltimore.
We have one of, I don't know. Okay, I don't want to say it's the only, but we have a glass blowing degree program in Salisbury, Maryland.
Yeah.
And guess what the hole is where you actually fire the glass in?
The glory hole.
It's called a glory hole.
Wow.
Full circle. That's, well, maybe like oval. Like half a circle.
Just fire your glass into the glory hole.
Oh, yeah.
Love to hear it.
Oh, yeah.
And if you're big into finding out what state sports we have, guess what our state sport is, buddy?
Jousting, motherfuckers.
It's fucking jousting.
Jousting.
Get some. You think your state sport is cool? Ours is better.
And ironically, I haven't seen jousting done other than the run fair.
Yeah. There's got to be a jousting team somewhere.
Something.
Yeah.
Like a professional joust, or is there a semi, like a amateur league?
You know they won't pay. It's like volunteer jousters, but they're very good at it.
Fuck no. They wouldn't pay for it. And it's, okay, to be fair, jousting is actually very dangerous.
Oh, for sure. But you can't sit there and tell me that, like, we have the Hagerstown Speedway not that far away. They do dirt track racing and stuff. Yeah. You're not telling me that if you packed 10,000 fans, or I don't even know how many people could fit in that speedway, but to go see a joust in the middle of there with like real live jousting and shit, you don't think people would show up? I bet they would.
Oh, they pay money out the ass.
Exactly. So City of Hagerstown or whatever, let's hook it up. We got Meredith Park now, like just joust in there.
So what do you want to talk about first? We got 4 locations.
Yeah, well, let's just do a little bit of backstory here on what the Maryland witch trials were like. Prosecutions of people accused of witchcraft in Maryland between June 1654 and October of 1712. So again, it was not a unique experience. Salem obviously had their witchcraft trials in 1692. And of course, we're coming right off the heels of the huge European witchcraft trials.
What a time to be alive.
Right? So colonial Maryland actually had a unique relationship with religious freedom and stuff like that. They established Maryland as a safe haven for Catholic refugees from Europe and insisted on the need for the Maryland Toleration Act. In 1641, the act protected the Catholics from prosecution, but as the century went on, Puritan immigration displaced the Catholics and turned Maryland overwhelmingly Protestant. From 1644 to the 1670s, a series of religious conflicts in the colony eventually led to the Protestant Revolution, and as a result, Catholicism was made illegal in the province, and Puritans took control of the Maryland government. The goddamn Puritans.
Well, look who decided to show the fuck back up. Just when you think we were rid of them, when they were out, they decided to bring their smug little faces back.
So, as you can imagine, with these motherfucking Puritans and the goddamn government, naturally the next thing that's going to happen is people are going to start getting accused of witchcraft. Because that is the natural progressions of things. Death, taxes, and Puritans accusing people of witchcraft.
That should be a t-shirt. It's probably
in the
indie,
1600s.
It's probably an indie band too. Death, taxes, and Puritans. I go see them in concert. Dressed like the Quaker man, like in the forest.
Well, the Quakers were actually very tolerant of other people.
That's true.
So
yeah, that is true.
So the documented history of witchcraft in Maryland dates back to June of 1654, where a ship called the Charity of London arrived to St. Mary's City, where the death of a passenger, Mary Lee, was reported to the officials. Though testimonies held on June 23, 1654, it is revealed that Mary Lee was executed for being a witch 3 weeks prior to arriving. Word of her being a witch spread through the colony, resulting in various civil suits of slander. In 1657, another woman on a ship bound for the colonies was executed as a witch. Her name was Elizabeth Richardson, and her death would go on to result in a lawsuit brought forth by John Washington, the great-grandfather of George, against Captain Edward Prescott for her death. In the later part of the 17th century, criminal trials of witchcraft became more prevalent. In 1674, John Cowman marked the first judicial conviction of witchcraft by a Maryland court. Judicial witch trials lasted until 1712, when Virtue Viol was accused and found not guilty. Historian Francis Neal Park believed that the jury held a similar belief that echoed Joseph Addison in The Spectator from 1711. And quote is, "I believe in general that there is and has been such a thing as witchcraft, but at the same time can give no credit to any particular instance of it." The possibility of Maryland witchcraft kind of just goes throughout the years of 1600s, but probably nothing more iconic or more well-known than the story of Moll Dyer, who she was accused of being a witch and was banished from Leonardstown, and she was later found dead, but we'll get into that story a little bit later. September 30th, Rebecca Fowler was tried by the Provincial Court of St. Mary's County. The widowed Rebecca was accused of performing witchcraft at Mount Calvert 100, among other places in Calvert County. She was accused of using magic to harm Francis Sansbury in addition to other residents. She was indicted and pled not guilty. Attorney General Thomas Buford declared her guilty and sentenced her to hanging until death. She was hanged on October 9th, 1685. Rebecca was the only person legally executed as a witch by a Maryland court. So we only had one execution of witchcraft, but nonetheless, an innocent person lost their life for being accused of being a witch, thanks to the goddamn Puritans in the goddamn government. Those bastards. So that's the short version of the history of witches factually being in Maryland. Now, what we have topic-wise for you today are alleged stories and folktale of the Chesapeake Witches Coven, as it were.
Ooh, that's different.
Yeah, you like that?
I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah. So what do you want to talk about first, buddy?
We can talk about...
Let's talk about the witch tree.
The witch's tree?
Yeah.
Sure. So, like we said, on that map, there's the witch's tree, and that was the first that I had ever heard of the witch's tree. It kind of piqued my interest. It's located in Walesville, Maryland. It's in a swamp, and it's a large chestnut oak tree, which, contrary to popular belief, a lot of people believe that it's a bald cypress tree, but it's actually a chestnut tree.
What a bunch of fucking idiots. How can you not tell the difference? I mean, come on.
I read that in the research and I kind of chuckled. I was like, there's a strong debate somewhere right now.
Yeah, somebody out there is really advocating
that it's a cypress tree and not a chestnut tree. And it's in this swamp. And within the swamp, I'll kind of get into the history of it a little bit, but it's been like a lot of, I don't say like trauma, but there was supposedly a hanging of a slave that took place at this tree. Within the swamp, it's also referred to as like the burnt swamp, because, which I didn't look too much into the history of this, but back in like the 1600s, there was a huge like forest swamp fire.
Interesting.
That burned like a crap ton of acreage in the land, and like a bunch of homes got destroyed and stuff like that in the surrounding area. Mm. So there's like trauma from that. People report, driving your cars up there, that they kind of break down. You kind of stall out there. There's like no cell phone service out there. Classic. A lot of orb activities.
Okay.
And ghost activity there. It's just like a creepy, ominous,
Any specific ghost things?
So what I found was there was a medium that went out there and...
Okay.
Or excuse me,
the
tree. She touched the tree and she made contact with an individual spirit, a slave named William. And William had indicated... that he was hanged from the witch's tree. He had been wrongly accused of a minor crime and was not aware of who the guilty party might be. When this medium talked to William, the more or less kind of got his side of the story, and she feels that after having that experience, it kind of put William to rest.
Okay.
She initially claimed that when she first got to witch's tree, she didn't really feel like any sort of strong spiritual connection. When she touched the tree, though, she kind of felt like a dark aura, like a presence that kind of like resonated, resonated like inside her. But the thing to know about this tree, what kind of makes it so like iconic, was, I guess back in the day, to help with property lines, they would plant certain trees, and they were called witness trees.
Okay.
And this tree is considered like a witness tree.
Mm-hmm.
So you have like the perimeter of your yard, of your land or whatever, and like you put markers in the land to kind of like, but in certain areas sometimes you can't really reach like the land or whatever, so they'll plant like a witness tree. And if you go to this location, you have this giant oak tree that is clearly like it was planted there because all the other trees are like younger and smaller, and this tree is like huge, just like kind of like ominous sitting there. So I think there's like a presence that comes from this tree, kind of being there and seeing it. People kind of just feel like this like dark energy, I guess. It's like uncomfortable.
Spooky vibes.
Other spiritual activity that has happened there. People report seeing orbs at night, flashing lights, kind of glowing. But it's in a swamp area, so it could be like swamp gas, But we all know when people say swamp gas, what they really mean.
Swamp ass.
Swamp ass.
I never understood the theory of swamp gas causing paranormal phenomena.
I haven't either, and I don't know enough.
I haven't really looked into it that much, but it's like
to kind of justify like what it is.
I mean, I guess the gas could affect the atmosphere in some way and cause lighting to change and stuff like that, but I don't know.
No. So as I said, it was a witness tree. Witness trees were once used to mark property when the site was not suitable for a traditional marker, and large trees was within 10 chains, which is I guess back in the day they measured by chains. 660.
Not to be confused with a rapper.
Yeah, right. Is there a guy named 10 Chains?
There's a guy named 2 Chains.
Under 2 Chains. His arch nemesis.
10 Chains is the final boss.
10 Chains, which measures out to 660 feet of the point to be marked. In the landscape context, witness trees also were witness to significant historical events, in this case, the Civil War.
Okay.
Because I think this tree's been there for a minute. The surrounding forest is much younger and contains a wider variety of species than the original forest would have had. Because of these younger trees, the witch's tree is really notable. It is larger, taller, and more gnarled than any of the other trees. Some of the other trauma that has occurred at the tree. It's like I said, it lives within the Great Cypress Swamp. It's a conservation area managed by the Delaware Wildlands Management. The swamp is also called the Burnt Swamp because a vast fire resulting from a moonshiner still exploded. It burned in the explosion happened in 1930, and the fire continued to burn for 8 months.
Oh shit!
Through the peat layers, despite a great effort to extinguish it. A previous fire in June of 1782 burned 3,000 acres and threatened to burn down homes. It was said that the light from that fire could be seen 70 miles away.
Oh, damn.
It's definitely... So there's a lot of activity that has like gone on there. Another thing that the swamp, not really related to the tree itself, but related to that area, is the Selbyville Swamp Monster, which I thought was kind of cool.
And just for reference, where is the witch's tree kind of located, geographically speaking?
Whaley'sville, Maryland. So I think closer to the eastern shore.
Okay.
Going out towards like Delaware.
Gotcha.
In that area.
So if you're ever driving down towards Ocean City, hit up the witch's tree.
So we had that still that explodes in the 1930s, which I thought, when I read this, I thought it was kind of interesting. Remember how when we were talking about the Snallygaster?
Yeah.
How
he smelled the booze and crashed into it?
Yeah, that whole drama pertaining to the still. And what we kind of concluded was, okay, it was probably a moonshiner that was trying to keep people away from his still, so they concocted this like crazy story.
Right.
So in the 1930s, you have the instance of the Selbyville Swamp Monster. And I remember this kind of occurred around the same time. So I wonder if this person was like, oh shit, we have the Snallygaster incident. And, they made a story out of that. Let me create something about the Selbyville Monster to keep people away from my swamp or my still.
Get out of my swamp.
Basically. There is the Selbyville Swamp Monster that dates back to the time of the 1930 fire. At that time, an old shingle maker died in the fire, and people thought he haunted the edge of the swamp. Sightings of the swamp monster increased in the 1960s and were highlighted in the Delmarva News on several occasions in the early 1960s. Many years later, Ralph Grapperhaus, editor of the Delmarva News, admitted that it was a hoax, perpetrated by himself and his actor friend Fred Stevens.
You son of a bitch, Grapperhaus.
Fucking Grapperhaus. Fred crafted a costume that included a raccoon hat, a scary mask, and a club. And jumped out at passing vehicles along Route 54. Despite it being revealed as a hoax in 1987, and Fred admitting that he hadn't used the costume since 1964, the tale lives on. Stories of sightings of the monster continue to suggest new generations of area residents that there could be a real swamp monster out there. And of course, lastly, so the folklore that kind of just surrounds this area. So you have the swamp monster, you have the natural disasters of the fires, illegal activity with the moonshine still exploding in the 30s. Folklore contends that brightly colored lights and orbs surround the tree. A man sitting in a truck reading a newspaper is seen behind the tree. And there's no way for a truck to be driven back there. So I guess
I was going to say, is that like a...
it's like a sighting, like a ghost sight.
That's just Earl back there reading the paper.
Yeah, basically. So people will, I guess, go up to this tree and they'll see a truck back there, like a weird spirit truck.
Okay.
And a guy in there reading his newspaper because, that's what you do when you're a ghost.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, what else are you going to do?
Given
I like to know what paper he's reading.
Oh yeah, right.
I like to think that ghosts have their own newspapers and there's like the new happenings in Ghost World.
Yeah. Well, the reason why that sticks out so much is because apparently in front of this tree there's like an 8-foot ditch. So people were like, "Well, how the fuck did a truck get over there? You can't. How do you get over this moat? You know, or whatever it may be." Some people have reported a woman screaming and crying, dogs barking, a car engine starting in the middle of the night. But then, skeptics say, well, it's surrounded by
those are all things that can happen.
Yeah, and it's surrounded by farmland.
Yeah,
So,
nothing spooky about it.
Yeah. But locals will warn you not to go out there alone. It is known as a spot for vehicles to break down, and many claim there is no cell phone signal to be found. There's an article online called by Dr. Carol A. Polio. And if you just type in, the witch's tree, Delmarva, it'll pop up. But that really is like the only first account that I could find of different instances of this like area. Kind of sounds like it's just like an ominous kind of location.
Spooky place.
Spooky natural things happen.
Yeah.
It'd be kind of cool to check out. I want to see how big this tree is.
I'm interested to see how it has been witnessed to the Civil War, because that far over to the eastern side, I don't know how much happened over there, but
I think it's more not so much that it witnessed
just like that time
specifics. It's been there
like
since
1860s.
Like
okay,
yeah, like it witnessed the Civil War.
Okay, all right, I see what you're saying.
But it'd be cool to check out. I don't know if it's still there, because I also found information saying that it toppled over in a storm.
Oh, okay.
So the stump is still there apparently, but the actual like original tree
that's a shame.
Fell over. I don't know if it's true or not.
Yeah,
but it'd be kind of cool to go check out. But the stump has been like graffitied. You can find pictures of people like touching like this like huge stump or whatever.
Oh, gotcha.
So yeah, that's the witch's tree. That's what I found on that.
Wow,
pretty interesting.
Wow, spooky stuff happening down there in the Delmarva.
Some crazy shit.
I like the truck sitting behind us.
That's the best part.
Back there
just Errol, just
reading his paper.
Fuck, sipping his coffee.
Six pack of beer sitting in the trunk.
Coors Banquet.
Yeah, of course.
Fucking Ford.
The ghost beer of choice.
His Chevy 2500 diesel. Just sitting there, just like,
can I help you, folks? How are you sitting there? Mind your business. That's how.
That's how. I've been coming here since 1475.
How did you get a truck? Why don't you mind your own fucking business?
Okay,
like I said.
Number one, mind your fucking business.
Just because I'm a ghost doesn't mean I can't have modern technology.
God damn it, fucking simpletons.
Goddamn Puritans. All right, so the next one we have is Witch's Rock, also known as Chrome Hill Rock. Now, this one was the hardest one for me to kind of track any information down on.
Sure.
It's kind of located up northern Maryland, above the Chesapeake Bay, close to the Pennsylvania border, but it's more eastern Maryland than western Maryland.
Yeah.
It's located in Rock State Park along Chrome Hill Road. Legend goes that on All Hallows Eve, also known as Halloween, spooky. Of course, it's on Halloween. At least one unsuspecting traveler will get spooked while driving on that night, thanks to the coven of witches that returns to the area they used for their unholy ceremonies in the 1700s. One spooky tale has it that a couple drove by Witch's Rock one Halloween evening and saw their names painted on the rock.
Nope.
Painted in what? Blood?
So there's like driving.
Tom and Sherry, stop here.
And just like slowly back up in reverse. Huh.
Just gotta keep driving, I think. You just gotta keep driving.
Was that our names? It was not. You're gonna keep driving.
Frightened, they drove quickly home. Good. Returning the next day, they found a moss growing over the rock where their names had mysteriously appeared the night before. Apparently, many other people have had the same experience. Close by is the Mine Old Fields, sometimes called the Devil's Stomping Ground. So a lot of things happen in this general area, but the Chrome Hill Rock seems to be the basis of this, thanks to a coven of witches in the 1700s that practiced their unholy ceremonies there and sacrifices, which is up to your own interpretation, knowing the history of witchcraft in the 1700s, being mostly just accusations.
Yeah. Seldomly, very seldomly was there sacrifices.
Yeah. No better place to do it than along some random rock.
Devil's Stomping Ground sounds like if Jack Daniels created this crazy bourbon, or Buffalo Trace created this like super strong.
It's like a
bourbon,
Devil's Brew or Devil's,
and that's what it's called.
Devil's Cask or something like that. Yeah.
And the Devil's Stomping Ground is like the special release of this bourbon.
I like it.
I have Devil's.
We should start a line of cigars on our Shadows and Sightings line of cigars that
we talked to the Kraken one, like
the Devil's Stomping Ground cigar.
Devil's Stomping Ground. What would it taste like?
Like you just described, just a spice, just a nice bourbon infused cigar.
Yeah, cinnamon, spice, and everything nice.
Double toil and trouble. Fires burn and cauldrons bubble. I forget the rest of it. Eye of Newt and something else. Well, we'll leave that stuff out. It'll just be a nice, smooth, spicy cigar.
Tastes like chocolate.
But yeah, that's all I really have on Chrome Hill, a.k.a. the Witch's Rock. Just a coven of witches out there doing sacrifices, and if you drive by on Halloween, you'll see your name written on the stones, and then the next day or whatever. I mean, I don't know why the people, if they see their names written on it, just get out and look around. What's the worst that can happen?
A lot. Death.
I would be like, how did you know my name? How did you get this information? I did not consent to you putting my name on your rock.
I will fucking sue your ass. I want to speak. Get out here.
Speak to your coven manager.
Go get it right now.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Karen. And I'm here.
Clearly it was on the rock.
We know. Did you get you read the rock?
That's why we got you here.
Don't get fucking smart with me.
I demand a gift card.
To what?
To whatever you're doing here.
Give me your fucking manager. I'm going to raise hell.
I know the owner, so you know the owner of the coven.
I'm a Puritan,
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. So, Chrome Hill Road in Rocks State Park. If you're ever out that way on Halloween night, take a look around and see if you can find the Witch's Rock and see if your name is on it. All right. Next, we have the Witch's Grave, located near Annapolis. Legend has it that the Witch's Grave has a gnarled, slanted tree overhanging the bank of Spa Creek, where it marks the grave. At the base of the tree lies a crypt where 3 unnamed witches were buried. Local lore has it that 2 of them were hung and 1 was burned. Their tortured ghosts are known to haunt the area and anyone who summons them from their final resting place. This particular area inspired the story of the Blair Witch Project. In case curious about where that came from, Burkittsville was not, I mean, it's closer to us. Burkittsville's closer to us than Annapolis, but
it's on the cusp of like PA, isn't it? Burkittsville?
No, it's actually closer. It's like South Mountain area-ish.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So there's a couple of pictures of it that I'm looking at. It's basically just a twisted tree, and then like pretty much exactly like it says, there's a little ditch or like a crypt or something. I don't know if they ever found bodies in there, but apparently there are 3 unnamed witches down there. You'd think that they would dig it up and be like, are these actual bodies or is there anything here? But
what's stopping them? Are they just afraid of getting cursed? Or
could be.
Is it they just don't have funding?
The DNR is not giving them the. Speaking of the DNR, I meant to give them credit for the Chrome Hill Rock story. They actually posted that on their website. So the Department of Natural Resources of Maryland posted a spooky stuff in state parks column on their webpage.
Cool.
They must get enough things to warrant having these things happen that they have to report it.
Calls.
I think we should start the Department of Unnatural Resources.
Oh, yeah. It's oh god, the DUN, no, the DUR is here. Yeah, what do we got going on? Oh yeah, it's just typical haunting behavior right here. Got yourself 3 unmarked witches in there. Are you gonna dig them up? Because I sure fucking ain't gonna do it.
Hell no. Hell no.
Absolutely not. You didn't pay me enough.
Again, some of these are really hard to track down any information. It's just a lot of folklore. I really would like to know how these places became synonymous as a witch tree or a witch rock or a witch's grave.
How 4 of them, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, the next story we're going to talk about is a little more self-explanatory. That one has some build up to it. Yeah. But this is just a random place along the creek near Annapolis. You just randomly are like, oh, look at this tree. There's witches buried down there. And then like from there, that's accepted as a fact.
Doesn't take a lot for people to.
I mean, that's true. But I'd like to know the origin point for this specific story. I'd like to know where the origins of this story started.
Yeah, you'd have to really do some digging because I didn't find much on any of these.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's probably some resources out there that I could probably talk. Or if there's any listeners out there that are listening, if you guys want to provide any sort of clarity or feedback on some of these locations, like we'd love to hear you.
This is coming from a 2016 article called "The Powers of the Witches Rise: The Chesapeake Witches," written by Leah Goff, I believe is her name.
Okay.
And she must have been doing some research for a book she was writing at the time, like a fictional book, Bewitching Hannah, set in present-day Annapolis, and will answer some of these unsettling questions. So maybe if I would have bought the book, I would know more. Yeah. Maybe I'll have to look into it and see why.
Be kind of curious to see. Yeah.
She claims that she is descended from a 17th century Chesapeake Bay witch, Elizabeth Duncan. So whether or not she was actually a real witch, who knows? But I guess she was at least accused of it.
That sucks.
Or maybe she was a real witch and it doesn't suck.
Ooh, that'd be cool.
She got what she deserved. I'm just kidding.
As the Puritans
would say. Yeah. Local lore has it that 2 of them were hung and 1 was burned. And if you know anything about colony witch hunts, they typically never burn them at the stake. That was a European thing. So
they just hanged them over here.
Yeah, all of them got hanged. So one being burned, I don't know. There's a little bit of disconnect there for me.
Sure.
Of the validity of that story.
It's not the typical MO.
Yeah. Of the colonists. Yeah. We were good, decent people besides the Puritans.
Yeah. We don't burn you. We hang you. Why? Because we're civilized.
Yeah. All right. And then we have the granddaddy story of them all. This one has the most information available. This one's actually been recognized by like the state of Maryland.
As an actual thing.
Yeah. So this is the story of Moll Dyer. And Nick, if you want to take this one.
Sure. So Moll Dyer was a person.
And that's it. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Shadows and Sightings.
We'll talk to you next week. Now, real talk. Moll Dyer was a woman that, unfortunately, who was accused of witchcraft. Back in the 17th century, she was a resident of Leonardtown, Maryland. She was chased out of her home by the local townsfolk on a winter night, and her body was allegedly found a few days later, partially frozen to a large stone. A little bit of history about this. So this takes place in the region of St. Mary's County, Maryland. Local legend keeps that Moll Dyer was a colonist, but the consensus is that the events took place during February in the late 1690s, during the Maryland witch trials, which Taylor talked about earlier, that resulted in multiple acquittals and 1 recorded death. There are currently no known primary sources, census data, or otherwise firmly historical evidence that proves that the events of this legend actually occurred. So it's a lot of hearsay, he said, she said kind of thing. It's just like a folk tale at this point.
This is another one that happens down near the base of the Chesapeake Bay. This is Calvert County, I believe.
Yeah, like near Leonard.
Definitely, yeah. Like these are parts of Maryland I've actually never been to.
Calvert County. I want to go just for Calvert Cliffs.
Yeah.
To do metal detecting out there.
Okay.
Fossil hunting, because you can find a lot of cool stuff.
Interesting.
They have like large. People have found those like megalodon, shark teeth out there.
Yeah, I had to look up where Moll Dyer Road was, and just kind of that's allegedly where she lived.
So, like a lot of events that precede witchcraft trials, accusations, there's normally a series of events that occur, and because that's just the time that it was back then. Oh, it must be witchcraft.
The simple thinking.
Yeah, my crops are dying. Yeah. Oh, there's a pandemic going around.
An influenza plague is happening. Must be a witch.
Must be a witch.
Could have just been that you ate bad meat and didn't wash your hands for 6 months.
It's like, you haven't bathed in 6 months, sir. Well, yeah, why would I do that?
Only witches bathe.
Yeah. Hygiene? That's for those witches over there. A deadly plague and poor crops had taken the toll on the Leonardtown community, and the particularly harsh winter meant that people were fearful of not making it through the season.
And here comes the best part.
A deeply religious and puritanical community.
Big surprise.
The townsfolk turned to superstition, claiming that the famine, disease, and ice storms were the product of, you named it, witchcraft.
Son of a bitch. They just got all the power over all of those things. Ice storms, you know it's witchcraft.
Oh, yeah. It's just like the perfect storm of, oh, yeah, this is totally a witch. This is totally, or maybe it's science. Get rid of him.
Witch right there. We found him.
Hang him. A meeting in the local shop determined that Moll Dyer, an older woman who lived on the southern edge of town, was a witch in question.
Like how they just are like, hey, what about that lady? Yeah, fuck her in particular.
Yeah, pretty much, basically. The lady was minding her own business, probably in the corner.
Just lived in a little hut outside of town, lived back in the forest, probably just grew mushrooms or something. And
eating apples.
Yeah, just hanging out.
Making pie.
Probably was a sweet old lady.
Right? Probably. I honestly probably could help heal the town.
Probably, yeah.
Had some like knowledge of,
like she's been here. Yeah. She's been through it.
So they have this meeting. They start to question Moll Dyer, and will determine that she was a witch in question and had called upon the devil to terrorize the people of Leonardtown. Events rapidly escalated and a mob was formed with the intent of running her out of town. Upon arrival, the mob surrounded and set fire to her hut, with Moll barely managing to escape, and ran past the crowds into the woods. Some accounts claim Moll Dyer saw the mob approaching and fled quickly, with only enough time to grab a light shawl for warmth. Regardless of the telling, she runs for miles until her legs finally give in. And remember, this would have taken place during, February of the winter back
dead
then.
Of winter, yeah.
So she's running outside of her hut. The elements are against her. It's probably snow, probably storms. Knowing she would die of exposure before sunrise, she found a small boulder and placed her right hand upon it. She then raised her left hand to the moon and called down a curse on the people of Leonardtown.
And really, who can blame her?
I mean, yeah. I just minding my own business, sipping my tea, getting ready for some Monday Night Raw.
And by that, you mean eating a raw potato.
It's one of those things where she probably was like sipping on some coffee or tea and kind of just like glanced over out the window and saw the torches approach.
Just did like the double take.
Spits the coffee up. So yeah, she raised her left hand to the moon, calls down a curse upon the people of Leonardtown. Days later, her body was found frozen to the stone with her hand still held up towards the sky. The details of the curse are variable depending on the teller, but usually fall in the realm of blighted crops, infertility, child mortality, and familiar misfortune.
Just regular things that happen in the late 1600s.
Yeah. Or, when you summon a curse, you're very specific. I hope you get infertility. I hope your fucking crops don't.
I hope your dick doesn't work anymore. Why would you say that?
No! Enjoy your erectile dysfunction. My what?
Yeah, they don't know what that is. That's the work of the devil. That the dick doesn't work.
That because men's pride, that was probably one thing that they didn't blame on the devil because nobody knew about it. Nobody talked about it. Is there anything that you notice going on with you that you might want to? Maybe it's the devil.
Nope, can't think of anything.
No, I can't think of anything. No.
Because your wife was just in here and she had some concerns.
She's over there. I'm over here.
She must be a witch. I don't know.
Get rid of her. No self-respecting man's going to talk about his erectile dysfunction.
No self-respecting man doesn't have a working dick.
Yeah.
Witch.
Her spirit is said to still haunt the land surrounding Leonardtown, looking for the men who forced her from her home. It is also claimed that a handprint of discolored stone can occasionally be seen on the Moll Dyer Rock in front of the Tudor Hall mansion. Many supernatural events are reported near the modern-day Moll Dyer Road, which is a branch off of Maryland Route 5, that is claimed to be the site of either her residence or her death. reports of shadow people, will-o'-the-wisp, a white dog, causing car accidents, and a thick, unnatural fog and frequent lightning strikes are all common in this area.
And the Tudor Hall mansion that they moved the rock to is actually the home of the Historical Society.
I've read that it was a news reporter in the 70s somehow managed to find the rock. Like he uncovered the rock. I guess maybe he was doing some research,
right,
and found it and was like, "Oh, this is the rock," and then had it moved to the Historical Society, which I'm calling bullshit on.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, that story is, according to legend, Moll Dyer rested on a large stone rock before she died, leaving indentations either hands, knees, or both behind. This rock was lost for centuries until 1968, when a writer for the Washington Evening Star, Philip H. Love, read about the legend in a local historical journal and sought to locate the rock. A grocer who lived nearby claimed to have known about the rock since he was a young boy, leading Love to the location. In 1972, the 875-pound limestone boulder was moved by the National Guard from a wooded ravine near Moll Dyer Road to the Leonardtown Courthouse lawn in front of the old 1876 jailhouse. A simple plaque near the rock read Moll Dyer Rock circa 1697. The Moll Dyer Rock sat in this location for nearly 50 years until early 2021, when the St. Mary's County Historical Society relocated the large stone to the grounds of the Tudor Hall mansion, where the Historical Society has its headquarters. The rock sits under a plexiglass covering and has a more elaborate plaque detailing the events of the legend. Touching the rock allegedly causes people to feel nauseous, dizzy, or otherwise deeply uncomfortable. It is also said to bring illness and misfortune to one's family. Small offerings such as flowers, sweets, trinkets, mittens, etc. are often left near the stone to nullify the effects of the curse. Again, how do they know it was this rock? Otherwise, did people see the handprint on it,
maybe,
I guess?
I don't know. Maybe there was an indentation, like you said, on the rock that they were like, hey, this is it. But it could have been any rock.
That's a crazy story, to find this dead person frozen to a rock and then you pry her off and the hand is still there. And then it just lasts there forever.
I mean, it's not uncommon. Like freezing to death on a rock is uncommon, but handprints though. Yeah. But you are right. This story in particular had the most.
Yeah, this is widely considered the most popular folklore, witchcraft lore of Maryland. So she's like a well-known character or person, historical person at this point. I misspoke earlier saying about the witch's grave being the basis of the Blair Witch Project. Moll Dyer was actually the catalyst for the inspiration of the Blair Witch Project.
Gotcha, okay. It would be cool to go see the rock.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I've seen like pictures of it where it's like in a glass case.
As with all folk tales, the story has been passed down through the generations and changes with the telling. In 1994, Thomas Jarob conducted a series of interviews with 10 local residents, including a member of the Dyer family, a local historian, and several people from families that have lived in the county since the 1600s. According to these interviews, Moll Dyer may have come from England, Ireland, Virginia, Kentucky, New England, or Connecticut. She is said to have been a spinster, a widow, a woman scorned in love, or the mother of 2 sons. She may have been born as a Dyer or married a man named Dyer. 2 people said they had heard her name was Moldy Dyer and that she was a Native American maid abandoned by her white lover after the birth of her child. The date of her death varied from the mid-1600s to the late 1700s, as Leonardtown was established in 1660. This would place her as a very early colonist and most likely English and Catholic. Several people said they thought she had come to Maryland because it was more religiously tolerant than other colonies. Catholics often fled to the Americas to escape persecution. This aspect of the tale could be plausible. So even though she's still considered the most popular folk tale in Maryland of witchcraft, the story still has so many variables to it that nobody truly knows what the real story was.
And that's a common thing with a lot of these stories about witchcraft that took place in the 1600s. We have what little documented evidence we have.
Right.
But those records will only go they're only going to work so well.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is like word of mouth and
passed down. Like it says, passed down generation to generation about what happened.
We'll never know the truth.
Until we die and become ghosts ourselves and talk to Moll Dyer about what happened.
You can talk to Moll Dyer. I'm talking to Edward by the tree in his Chevy truck.
Just pissed drunk.
Just, you look like you can use the course banquet. Finally, man, class.
Yeah.
This guy fucking gets it.
And then the next day you see him like just crashed into the tree. Horn blaring, airbag is he died again.
Like, oh man.
But that is the stories of alleged witches in Maryland. Any thoughts on any of the things we talked about, Nick?
I thought it was cool. It shows that there's a lot going on in our backyard. A lot of history that we haven't even
scratched the surface. Yeah,
we haven't even tapped into yet.
And like even these things were just, again, the witch's grave and the Chrome Hill Witch's Rock were the two hardest things to try to track any concrete evidence down on besides just alleged things that are happening. But the Moll Dyer story and the Witch's Tree have multiple things going on.
Some things, some history. There's a little bit of history behind both of them. So it made it a little easier to actually find things to talk about regarding them. But I think it's cool. I do love Maryland. We have a lot of cool history here.
Mm-hmm. It's just like a hub of Civil War history and early colonialism and shipping ports and Native American culture.
There's a lot of rich history here, especially with like the founding fathers and like the patriotism and stuff like that.
And we have the Appalachian Trail that goes right through here with its own set of horrifying and scary stories.
Ooh, we'll have to do an episode on that.
Yeah. But it's interesting. These are all places we can go visit. Yeah. We can go check them out for ourselves. Mm-hmm. And if we have any listeners that have seen these places or visited these places, we would love to hear what happened while you visited. If you had any spooky stories to tell about these places or any spooky encounters. Oh, yeah. Or if you've seen Earl in his truck drinking a beer behind the tree reading his newspaper in a ghastly Ford F-150.
Leave a Coors Banquet for Edward. And we don't even know if that's his name. We've just named
Edward.
His name is Edward now.
Ed the Ghost.
Ed the Ghost.
Good working class ghost.
Good honest man.
Except he parks his truck illegally behind a historical tree.
Good. But still good man. Reads the paper.
And takes some mittens for Moll Dyer.
Drives over to Moll Dyer's Rock. Yeah. Leaves the mittens there in the winter.
I like that they're like best friends.
Oh yeah.
Moll and Ed.
They were lovers. It was it's a spiritual love story.
It's a tale as old as time.
Yeah, exactly. Meet me by my running Chevy truck.
Yeah, right.
By the witch's tree. I got mittens for you.
Netflix will sell you the rights to this story.
Yeah.
But thanks for listening to this episode of Shadows and Sightings, a paranormal podcast. As always, you can find us on Instagram, Shadows and Sightings Pod, Facebook, Shadows and Sightings, a paranormal podcast, or send us an email, shadowsandsightings@gmail.com. Always looking for new content, new stories, and if you have any out there, let us know. Drop us a line. We're friendly. We talk to you.
Yeah.
We like to talk to people.
We do. We are friendly. And it's great. And we're always looking for any sort of content.
Yeah. Spooky stuff, mostly.
Yeah, spooky. If you send me like a picture of like your tax returns, I probably won't.
Can't give you any advice on that.
I can't do that.
Barely know how to do my own taxes.
Yeah, sorry. But I appreciate, you thinking that I can. That's nice.
So send us your spooky content, your paranormal stories, your ghastly adventures, your UFO stories, whatever you have. Yeah. Have you seen Mothman? Have you seen a cryptid? Let us know. But until next time, we'll see you then when we talk about all things spooky.